Want to learn how to pimp your bike? Watch this video and you'll have all the tools you need to do just that. We assembled this bike out of spare parts using basic workshop equipment and some welding. We have designed 3 different add-ons to our bike: a smoothie maker, a basket cutting board setup in the front, and a swinging stand. To power the bike blender, we use a friction drive. For this to work, we need a bike with a cargo rack over the back tire. We also need the following: 1 wooden board, 1 bike hub and axle, 4 small screws, 1 skateboard wheel or wheel of similar size, 4 bolts which fit the screws, and 4 wing nuts of the same size, 1 metal plate of size 6 by 30 centimeters, 1 bike hub, an axle for that hub, 2 ball bearings, 2 ball bearing covers, some washers and nuts that will fit over the axle, and 1 small bolt thin enough to sit at the end of the axle. We start with a piece of wood 19 by 41 centimeters with a thickness of 3 centimeters. Mark out a point at 18 centimeters lengthwise and 6 centimeters widthwise. Drill a pilot hole and then a washer size hole through the board. This size must be greater than the bearing holding the washer inside the hub, but less than the entire hub radius. In our case, this radius was 3 centimeters. Next, center the blender on top of this hole and trace around the blender. In order to secure the blender onto the board, route half a centimeter down to create a friction fit. Turn the board over and draw a hub-sized circle around the washer hole. Route this section half a centimeter down as well. This is done to raise the hub out of the way of the bike wheel. The friction drive will be built in the next section, but the board will need 6 holes for the attachment of this piece. Take the hub and place it in the routed hole. Mark 6 holes through the hub's outer ring holes. Drill these 6 holes all the way through with a drill bit that is slightly bigger than the hub's ring holes. Now we will build the friction drive. First, we must prepare the hub for attachment to the board. The hub should have small holes in the outer ring originally for attaching spokes. If you have bolts that will fit through the holes, you can move on to the next step. If you do not, use a drill press to widen 6 of the holes on the hub. To raise the hub further, additional wooden boards can be added for height. Acquire 2 19 by 14 centimeter boards that are 3 centimeters thick. For attachment, place each board half a centimeter away from the hub routed section. Then drill the mark points with a small bit 2 centimeters down and screw in 2 centimeter long screws. Repeat this for all 6 marks. In order to attach the board to the bike, 2 bolts, 1/2 centimeter wide, wing nuts that fit the screws, 4 washers, and an aluminum sheet 6 centimeters wide by 30 centimeters long are needed. To find bolt placement, put the board onto the cargo holder and mark the spaces between the holder structure, but with 2 bars in between these spaces. Hold the aluminum sheet up to the board and drill 0.75 centimeter holes through the metal. In the same spot, drill identical holes through the wood. Next, on one side of the axle, screw in a ball bearing holder and a nut to keep it in place. Using an angle grinder, cut a divot in the end of the axle large enough for the small screw to rest in. Weld the screw in place. To secure the hub to the board, push your 6 bolts through the holes you drilled in the board, then through the holes in the axle. Use bolts to secure the attachment. Place the axle through the hole you drilled in the board, with the welded screw on the top side of the board and the empty threads on the bottom. Slide one ball bearing up the other end of the axle to the ball bearing holder. Slide the bike hub onto the bottom of the axle with the widened holes touching the board. Add another ball bearing and a ball bearing holder. Last, place 2 nuts in your skateboard wheel and screw the whole piece on the axle. Depending on the length of your axle, you may need to use washers or nuts to keep the spacing of the hub and the wheel correct. To mount the friction drive on the bike, place your long screws through the holes in the bike. Place the aluminum plate underneath the luggage rack and then thread the screws through it. Place washers on each screw and then wing nuts. Tighten to secure the board, loosen to move it. As an added bonus, we chose to glue a cutting board to the extra space on our drive board. This friction drive is what powers your blender. When you pedal, you spin the bike tire, which spins the blender blades. We recommend purchasing a bike stand to keep your back wheel off the ground or build one your own like we did. Now you're ready to make a bike-powered smoothie machine of your own. Enjoy!